Okay, so let's get on with the teaching then. We are going to be talking about capturing data and integrating media. Now, let's focus on this here, capturing data, because this really is everything. They say the money is in the list, build your list and that's where the money is. I like to say the money is in the relationship that you cultivate with that list. My dear old dad, bless him, used to say, you nurse that list, nurse that relationship. And what we want to make sure that we do is we are capturing data, we are capturing names, emails, phone numbers on the back of something meaningful or valuable, but we must therefore include a call to action. So in effect what we're saying is we're asking someone to put their hand up and say, yes, this is of interest to me, I'm going to take this action because you have presented something in front of me. Ogilvy and Mather really stood head and shoulders above a number of advertising agencies then and now, because they actually did advertising themselves. If you look in this day and age, maybe if you've got a web design company or you've got a PR company or an ad agency that you're working for, see how many of them actually advertise their services. Well, Ogilvy and Mather did, and it was very much education based marketing and advertising. So here we are, how to create financial advertising that sells. So as you can see, some really good points here. I've sort of highlighted them in yellow so you can see that, and also the red arrow here, but it's just really great information. But look at this at the end. And I love the word he's used, invitation. All right, so they've actually said, they're pretty much saying, look, if you've enjoyed this, we've got something else for you, and you've got a presentation, contact us and you can get it. And this was way back in the day. So this is the importance of capturing data on the back of something meaningful or valuable and include a call to action, and specifically ask for the sale on the back of something meaningful or valuable and include a call to action. So what I mean by this is you can often have the opportunity to write a long sales letter or a long presentation and then ask for the sale after that. The key thing is provide something meaningful or valuable first, okay? And you can see that here that Ogilvy and Mather have done. Now I'm really drilling down, and I make no apologies for doing that. Meaningful or valuable. Gary Bencivenga was talking about one of the most painful sort of defeats he had. Now, I'm going to talk to you about a control later in this presentation. But basically, Gary Bencivenga was asked to compete with another bit of advertising, and he lost. And he says he was devastated, and when he went back and he had a look just to sort of really see, well, what did this person do that I didn't do? And he saw that that person had provided some really valuable information as part of the advert. Okay, so it must have been one of these sort of multiple page adverts, and instead of just sort of saying, here's what I've got and such, here are some details, here's how you can get it, right? This person really went in and offered some value, meaning even if the person reading the ad did not buy the product, they were better off having read the ad. And this is something that I've really tried to do. I love doing LinkedIn posts, okay? And here's one that I did for, the Titans of Direct Response, which I'll mention in a short while. So the article was, pretty much before you spend another 2K on an info product. And later on in the actual article itself was a link to buy this DVD package. Okay, now you can see it was 1,600 words. Okay, and it was meaningful, it was valuable. Even if someone chose not to go to buy that, just from reading those 1,600 words, I would like to think that they were better off for that. Next, the fortune is in the follow-up, and this is one of these areas where I just see so many people dropping the ball. And I don't even think it's from an arrogant standpoint. We put something in front of someone and we say, well, there, that's the best I've got. I've really done a great job in presenting it. They've got all the information and so on and so forth. And then we leave it. And this is sometimes where in organizations you'll get a boss say to someone else, well, look, well, I sent him the information. Well, have you called him? Have you followed up? And there is a fortune, an absolute fortune to be made in the follow-up. And the keys to effective follow-up after you've put an ad in front of someone, it must be frequent, consistent, congruent, and persistent. So when we talk about frequent, and we're looking at some of these definitions, look at this: occurring or done many times at short intervals, right? Visit a place often. Consistent, in the same way over time, especially so as to be fair or accurate. Congruent, in agreement or harmony. So if you put one ad in front of them, make sure the follow-up is in harmony or in agreement what you previously done. There's nothing better than sending somebody an ad or sending somebody a bit of direct mail. A couple of days later you call them and you say, did you receive my letter? Did you receive our article? Did you get our package? Did you watch our video? All right, so it's got to be congruent there. And this is the final one: persistent. Okay, continuingly, firmly, or obstinately in an opinion or course of action, in spite of difficulty or opposition. And for us, our difficulty and opposition is all that other noise that's being thrown in front of them. And then look at these: tireless, determined, purposeful, single-mindedness. All right. And when we talk about persistence, I think this man Drayton Bird is sort of, he's one of the best. He's been in this industry for a long time. He's worked with many of the people that I have mentioned in this. He has known a lot of them as well. He's done some fantastic work. But he talks about really being persistent, and he specifically talks about being persistent and the importance of it with your follow-up emails as well. Now, when we say that, what you can't do, of course, is follow up in such a way where, you know, it's just the same thing all the time. So even when you're running ads, and please believe me, you can follow up. And this is where if somebody says, right, I've booked, 6 ads over the next 6 weeks or 6 months or however, these are ways that you can follow up. So you can follow up on the phone and with emails, but you can also create follow-up ads. You put more offers there. You put education-based content, you can do testimonials and case studies, and you can do milestones, letting you know what's going on in your world and in your organization as well. Next, we talk about integrating the media. And I spoke about Drayton Bird just a moment ago. Drayton is one of 2 people who I call on for advice, and these 2 people are gracious enough always to answer me and give me great advice. This man is Brian Kurtz. He is based out in America, and I'd mentioned before this book, Breakthrough Advertising, which costs a couple of £100. I mean, it's not a cheap book. Brian was kind enough to send that to me for free. I had sort of reached out to him. I've always got questions. This man's largeness of heart is I just can't even describe it. And I think that one thing about these ad men who really feel an obligation to pass it on, they just want businesses to do it the right way. And this is why I'm focusing on Brian. And Brian is very big on multi-channel marketing. What we're basically talking about with our ads there is the ability to interact with potential customers on various platforms. So we start with the ad in a various sort of modality, and then we move them somewhere else. So let's focus on this, because when we talk about multi-channel marketing, we're talking about integrating your media, integrating your advertising. Dan Kennedy says that the worst number in marketing is the number 1. And I call it the that thing you do syndrome. I'm not sure if any of you sort of enjoyed this movie as much as I did, but it was a group called The Wonders, and they sang a great tune called That Thing You Do. But the problem was it was the only tune. And by the end, they were fighting, amongst themselves. Yes, a lot of it had to do with growing up, but also, they just felt that, there needed to be a little bit more things happening and a little bit more creativity. So here's an example of a letter that I sent out as direct mail, and as you can see, I sort of put that headline, how you can get the best results from your advertising all of the time. And here I created a critique online and sent the people there. So let's just take half a step back. Here I write a letter. In the letter I send them to a web page. Here's the web page. On the web page I ask for an email, and this will help me get their email address. So when we look at the breakdown here of the media integration, I had a direct mail. That was my ad, okay? And in that letter, it was an introduction, and I was presenting something in front of them. Then that came off offline to online, all right? And online in the form of a web page where I delivered what I said I would in the letter. However, in order for me to do that, I needed to get an email from them, and I've got the email, and now I've been able to do some more marketing via email. Okay, so this is the importance here, the step-by-step of sort of integrating that media. Oh, and one other thing up at the top here, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, is that, you know, there's just a little bit of code here so I can do some tracking as well. So don't forget, the fortune is in the follow-up. You really must persist with your ads. You either create an ad, you get somebody to act on the back of their ad, all right, and then you continue to follow up. Conversely, you run a series of ads, sort of still really promoting that big idea as well. And then different ways that you can follow up and you can integrate. You can do your direct mail, your video, you can do more ads, you know, so you get somebody onto a page. Now all of a sudden you can run Facebook or YouTube ads, you can do email, and of course the best way, you can pick up the phone and speak to them. Now there's a lot of deep and detailed information here. So this is the reason why, number one, I very much encourage you to be taking notes, but number two, you will also have you know, the ability to download these videos and keep them and work on them as well, okay? Because when you begin to look at sort of things that I do, like the big funnel over here, you can just see how detailed it can get, how many different things that you can put in front of people in that whole sort of online, offline follow-up modality. And interesting, you know, it's no coincidence that one of Brian's web addresses is www.singlechannelmarketingissoboring.com. But remember, like I said, you need to give yourself a break, because nobody does all this all the time, right? I'd be doing you a disservice if I did not explain all these things and highlight them to you. I think it's, you know, this is why I've sort of taken the time to put them on videos, so you can stop, you can pause, you can understand. A bit later on I'll tell you a way that you can sort of liaise with me and other entrepreneurs on this if you want to sort of just say, oh look, what do you think of this, what do you think of that? But remember this, nobody does everything all of the time. And here we come probably to the most important aspect. I know I said that right at the start, the significance of the headline, and the headline is really big, but I wanted to do this last only because it was important to sort of really lay the foundation for all the other ones. And this is the importance of testing, tracking, and measuring. And you've got to begin here with a testing mindset, all right? Now, what do I mean by that? Okay, let's look at this oil well in front of us, okay? And I got an analogy, and I got the description from this man here. His name is Eben Pagan, and he's one of a few online, primarily online marketers who I follow. But this man is very, very sharp. And you can see in one of his teachings here, he was sort of doing a case study from none other than David Ogilvy. But interestingly enough, he got to interview Richard Branson once at an event, and Sir Richard was so impressed with Eben that he actually got Eben to go to one of Sir Richard's events and interview him again. So this man really knows his stuff. And this is a number that he threw out to me that sort of really bowled me over when I first heard it. He said 80%. And specifically, he said, expect at least 80% of your advertising and your marketing tests to fail. Okay? So, you are going to run 10 ads, and in effect, Eben is saying 8 of them, expect them to fail. Now, let's focus on that word fail. What does he mean by that? He means just that you're probably not going to get the kind of return that you were expecting from them. That doesn't mean there'll necessarily be no sales or no inquiries, but he says, you know, as far as if you put some money down, right, 80% of the time, the likelihood is you will not get a return on your investment. But this is why, and this is why he says don't get discouraged. He says the whole purpose, however, is we are not trying to win a coin flip. We are drilling for oil, okay? We're not flipping a coin, we are drilling for oil. Now, those of you who are into your movies like I am will know sort of how volatile a flip of a coin can be. This was Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men, where quite literally during the movie there are several times where whether he killed somebody or not, all boiled down to the flip of a coin. But you know, you even look at it in sporty terms, you'll get entire cricket tests determined by a flip of a coin. I mean, look at the anxiety on the face of the footballers here, because again, you know, do you have the ball, do you not have the ball? And in real time, a flip of a coin. Those of you who are familiar with your music, this man is Ritchie Valens, and you can see him here playing in a concert. The man just to Ritchie's left and our right was Tommy Allsup, and Tommy and Ritchie actually flipped a coin to see who would fly to the next venue. Ritchie won the toss, but he lost, and it was known as the day the music died. And also in that flight was Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper. So when we say flipping a coin, you know, and you can see just how just so much can hinge on the flip of a coin versus drilling for oil. Now let's look at this description. Drilling an oil well is a massive project, and you see it goes on to say before you begin you need to fill out permits and proposals and so on and so forth. And look at that. You know, what we're just trying to say here is that it's a really detailed process. So when Eben says expect 80% of your advertising and marketing tests to fail, but be okay about it, it's because we are not trying to win a coin flip. We're not just trying to sort of get a coin and do that. We want to drill very deep. And most definitely there are going to be more losers than winners, but we're looking to win big when we do discover a winner. Okay, and I'm going to say that again. I know you're looking at it on the screen, okay, but more times than not your advertising will not get the results you want. But when you do succeed with it, when you know you are, the whole objective is to find the right ad going to the right place with the right offer in front of the right people. Okay, and once you begin to get that, then you can get some huge winners. This man is Greg Renker. He is a co-founder of the company, a direct marketing and direct sales company worldwide called Guthy-Renker. You know, they're primarily known for their infomercials and working with some quite lovely looking ladies, okay? And you can see here, I mean, back in 2012, they did $1.8 billion in 1 year of sales. And it was during the Titans of Direct Response event a couple of years ago where Greg Renker actually came and shared his successes, his failures, and just his overall experience of working with advertising and marketing. And he had something very interesting to say in line with what Eben said about the difference between flipping a coin and drilling for oil, and the understanding and the mindset that you are going to win some, but you'll also lose some as well. Just have a listen to what he says.
We've probably done about 225 infomercials in the last 25 years. And again, this is not totally accurate, but it's indicative. I would say 200 of those have not succeeded, but 10 of them may have done 50 to 100 million in sales. Another 10 may have done 100 to 400 million in sales, and 5 of them have done and keep doing 200 million to 750 million in sales.
So you can pay for some failures with some successes,
right.
I believe is that. And,
right.
and again, we've been talking about testing, we've been talking about all those issues, and what a great example, right?
So let's get this straight, okay? He said they had 25 winners out of the 225. I just jumped online and got the percentage calculator out, which means 11% was his success rate, okay? Now, Eben said expect at least 80% of your advertising tests to fail. Well, in the case of Guthy-Renker, 89% of their advertising and their marketing failed. 89%. So yes, they have an 11% success rate, but that 11% really did reap some massive benefits. Now, I don't want you to sort of again sit here and, dare I say it, you know, start invalidating this by saying, oh yeah, well, it's okay for them and so on and so forth. What we're just trying to tell you is the numbers. the fact that, even huge organizations like this, even people, like Eben Pagan and Guthy-Renke, they talk about their success rate being around about that 10 or the 11%. But you've just got to remember, we're not flipping a coin, we are looking to drill for oil. And this is why you've got to be so meticulous, going through all those points that we said, a lot of the testing and the tracking and the measuring, so you do indeed discover those winners. Because when you do get that oil, it will be an unbelievable feeling for you. But you've just got to make sure that you have that mindset. And once you get an idea on something, don't drag your heels. This is why it is so important to get an idea and to test it as soon as possible. I see people spending so much time getting something and thinking this might work, this might not work. If you see a magazine, if you see an opportunity, if it fits in line with your target audience and what you want to do, put it up there, test it as soon as possible, but do it in small quantities. So when you create a Facebook ad, just start off with £5 or $5 a day. Don't go big on it. If you're going to order some flyers, you see on the far right side, that looks great that you can get 10,000 of them for £95, but you want to get a smaller amount and you want to test them beforehand. Okay? And again, as I say, be kind to yourself and others, please. It's so easy to have some finger pointing here to say, well, I've just signed off this, to go into this advert and it hasn't worked. Or you go to the magazine and you've got to have a collaborative situation where you are working together. And remember, above all else, you are drilling for oil. You've got to set it up. You've really got to be painfully meticulous about it. And interestingly enough, when you do find a winner, okay, so we've talked about all the ones you're going to try and you're not going to quite get the result that you're looking for from it. When you do find that winner, you have to do everything you can to beat it. It's Brian Kurtz who says, the control is your enemy. Now let me explain control. This is an ad from Todd Brown, okay, and as you can see, it's based on 26 power conversion tactics. So it's just ways to get people to take action online. And he had a video sales letter, okay, you can see that there. But Todd also had a text-only sales letter as well. So one of these was a control. I'm not sure which one. So let's just say, for argument's sake, it was this. You would go to the web page and you would see the video and the buy now. So he would talk very similar to what I'm doing now, and you would buy now. If that's working, what Brian Kurtz says, that is now your enemy. You might have 100 people come here, and in line with what Eben and Greg Renker have said, you might get 100 people come here and 10 or 11 people, 15 people buy. So therefore, what you do is you get another one to run next to it, because this is now your enemy, all right? You want to beat it. You want to see if you can get 30 people to do that, and so on and so forth. But the critical part of drilling for oil is testing. You must test. Now, testing really could be an entire seminar in itself, and some of the books and some of the resources that I've mentioned here earlier on and also here in front of me, you'll get some really more feedback and information. So, look at these people. The last two, Dick Benson was very much a direct mailman, okay, but just tremendous with his testing. And then the last fella on there, Russell Brunson, very much not necessarily a new kid on the block, because he's been around for a while, but he really wrote a terrific book called 108 Proven Split Test Winners, okay? And as you can see, I've got my copy that I'm very, very proud of. You can go online. I will leave a link again with all the resources, because the last time I checked, you could just pay shipping on it, and it was something like $8, $9, something else like that. But what he does is, he will show you, right, here was this color on a buy now button, and we tried it with this, and this one worked, and he talks through it. John Caples does that in his book. Drayton is fantastic at doing that, but that is another sort of resource that I would heavily recommend. And then finally, we are looking at tracking and measuring. And this was a legendary saying for a long time. Half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is, I don't know which half. This was John Wanamaker. And look at that. Back in the 1800s, he was doing his advertising. This man, Keith Cunningham, a great teacher of entrepreneurs, a very successful businessman in himself, is a little bit more blunt. As you would expect from someone from Texas, he just says, people that don't want to measure don't want to be held accountable. Okay, so if we do want to be held accountable, we've got to measure, and it starts by us basically being able to gauge the level of response from someone. Are they putting their hand up? Are they asking for something here? Okay, and here are some examples of some things that we need to measure. We need to be able to see what was the reaction. So here's an ad that has a phone number and it also has an email address. And you know, if you Google telephone call tracking, you can keep the same sort of code number you have. So when people dial, it will still go to the main switchboard or something, but you'll be able to tell on the back of an advert how many people actually called that number, and then of course you can make decisions from that. Here's one of the web pages that I had done. If you can see there, you know, I put my web address, / that sends somebody again to a page. I can tell whether people have come there as to whether they sort of sign up and give me their email address, and I've also got some ways to track over here by putting in a Facebook custom audience pixel as well. Okay, it was Peter Drucker, the legendary management consultant, who says if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So again, we're not really trying to do anything other than measure something so we can make a qualified decision, and none more so than somebody saying, listen, do you want to do more advertising space? If we've measured something, if we know it's working, we can say yes. If we think it's not working, we can pull back, or we can begin to sort of tweak and test some of the different variables on the ad. So just to summarize the testing, the tracking and measuring, speed is the key. I cannot stress this enough. Get something, get it up, take a look, get some feedback. Start small, all right? Understand the best and the worst case scenario, all right? So we're saying that you put an ad up there. Yes, celebrate the victory when it comes, but just don't be too down if it doesn't work, okay? That is part of the process. Assess the progress and then base your next move on the results. And that way you can be accountable because you are measuring. And again, I'm going to just say it again. Please, during this process, honor the struggle, honor the journey, be kind to yourself and be kind to others, because you know, if you keep putting something in 10 times and only 2 times you're surviving, those other 8 times, just be positive, just, you know, strengthen your resolve, okay? And you really will come through the other side with some big wins. You know, I'm not big on Steve Jobs' sayings. I've got so much respect for the man and I love watching his presentations, but there is one saying that he did say that really always sort of gets my attention. And it's a video where, it's an old video where somebody basically calls him out in the crowd. And you know, there's some silence there, and he holds his hand up and he says, yep, some mistakes will be made along the way, and that's good, because it means we're making decisions, and we'll find the mistakes and we'll fix them. And I thought that was such a wonderful thing to say. So as you're doing these things and you're making ads, you're going to make some mistakes, you're going to get some losses, you go back, you find them, and you fix them. All right? So I am delighted to say that we have reached the end of the Small Business Advertising Seminar, where I went through this checklist of use of a compelling headline, translating value, using features, benefits, advantages, incorporating a big idea, capturing data and integrating your media, the importance of testing, tracking and measuring. Now, these are timeless principles that I have shared with you and some of the resources. So please, the whole objective here, what I want more than anything, is for you to go back to these time after time, hand them over to people in your team, even hand them over to your suppliers if need be, just so you can begin to work together and collaboratively in such a way that you can get the results that you want. If you would like these videos, okay, just go to muchamurappa.com/advertising seminar videos and you can download those. Now, a lot of the time, you know, the sort of big fancy gurus are the ones who say you can also get the slides. As you've seen with me, my slides are all over the place when it comes to sizes, so no slides. What I will do though is, for each seminar, I'll create a PDF with almost a bit of a sort of summary and some maybe some even little mini exercises to do, but that's going to take a while. Okay, please don't expect this over, you know, the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks, because I'll be focusing on a couple of other things that I'll share with you. But definitely, most definitely, if you want these 3 videos that you can download and take with you, I'll even you know, convert them to audio as well, so you can listen to them if that helps. Just go to muchamurappa.com/advertising advertising seminar videos. And if you found this valuable, your feedback would be very, very much appreciated. Okay, now if you could give me a testimonial for the Small Business Advertising Seminar, this 3-part seminar that I've put together that you've watched and hopefully learned from. But even better than that, I would love a result-based testimonial. And what I mean by that is if there's something in here I spoke to you about, a headline or something about translating value or the big idea, and that you've used that and you've got a result from it, that would make me so happy. Next is a LinkedIn recommendation. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, so if you could put a recommendation there. And finally, a small business survey. And let me explain about the small business survey. Actually, on the back of this gentleman's call to arms that I shared with you, where basically he was calling out people in the industry, just saying, look, there's not enough interest there. What I actually would like to do is begin sort of sharing some of this with people who sell advertising. But what I want to sort of have is credibility when I do that. So, testimonials from helping small businesses, and if you could take a survey, and I'll send all this information to you, that would really, really help me. And any testimonials, feel free to go over to my Facebook page. You can see the address there, and just share with what you learned and what you felt and whether it helped you. And I would be very, very grateful for that. And then just one final thing. On the back of these videos, I have had 1 or 2 people sort of ask me questions about that checklist. And with that in mind, I've decided, just for 6 months only, to form a small business advertising club. Now, you can get more details about it at this address here, muchamarapa.com/advertising club. I promise you, when you go to that page, it will be a short presentation because only people who have gone through this actual seminar itself will have access to this link in order to see that. But I'll explain it on there, and basically it will be for 6 months where we will work on those points. I will go deep on them. There is nothing in the club that I haven't shared here. We will just go deeper, and there'll be an opportunity to share, and of course you'd be able to send on any future ads that I can look at, and we could discuss with other entrepreneurs. So we would go through these 6 areas in the business club, and it really will only run for 6 months because end of January, February time, I will start working with some of the advertising providers. So once again, if you go to muchamarapa.com/advertising club, you will find out more details about how you can join me. So, some final thoughts that I would like to share with you. First of all, it was something said by this man. His name was Howard Luck Gossage. He was known as the Socrates of San Francisco. And he said, the real fact of the matter is that nobody reads ads. People read what interests them. Sometimes it's an ad. David Ogilvy was famous for saying, you can't bore people into buying from you. So you've got to make sure your ads are interesting. Jay Abraham, who in business terms, entrepreneurial terms, is just very, very well respected, talks about the 3 ways to grow a business. Number 1, you increase the number of customers. Number 2, you increase how much the customers pay you. And number 3, you increase how often your customers pay. Makes sense, right? So when we look here and you're looking at your advertising, we really want to focus on you running ads so you can increase the number of your customers. Now, there is a lot of talk in the industry which I fully agree with, that it is easier to get business from your existing customers, okay, and you need to build a quote-unquote back end of products and services and things like that. I am totally with that, but the fact of the matter is there is attrition with your customers, okay? Meaning, for whatever reason, it has nothing to do with your product, your service, your program. Maybe you're a local business and the people move. Maybe you provide a consultancy and you take them as far as they feel that they can go or something. So a lot of the time, whether you like it or not, your existing customers are going to leave, okay? So this is why it's very important to have something in place that allows you to increase the number of customers you have. I'm not sure if you know who this man is, but if you see him here, you most definitely will. He is, of course, Walt Disney, who had one of the best sayings I ever read. He says, "We don't make movies to make money. We make money so we can make movies. I love that. So when we look at this, Jay Abraham's 3 ways to grow a business: increase the number of customers, increase how much the customers pay, increase how often your customers pay. We are really talking about customer acquisition, okay? 3 ways to grow your business. It's acquiring customers. You must acquire your customers. Even if you feel that a product or a service or a program is worth a certain amount, I am not saying for a moment cheapen your product. I don't believe that. Okay. However, you must focus on customer acquisition as a standalone mission for you, and you must be so focused and on acquiring customers regularly and often. So if Walt Disney used to say, we don't make movies to make money, we make money so we can make movies, we look at Jay Abraham's 3 ways to grow a business: customer acquisition through making a sale. It's not just about, you don't make sales to build your business and your revenue and all the rest of it, although inevitably it will happen. What I want you to have as a mindset is that you make a sale to acquire a customer. Because once you've done that, you can increase how much they pay, you can increase how often you pay, and of course, you use your advertising to acquire that customer. You use your advertising to make that sale. This is Mucha Marapa, just thanking you for joining me. This was a long one. This was a long seminar, but I really hope that it's something that you can use. I hope that by focusing on principles that have been tried and trusted for many, many years, you can avoid some of the fluff. You can sort of reach some of your objectives. You can realize that when you're not getting some of the results that you're expecting, that it's actually quite normal and you mustn't be discouraged. But thank you so much for joining me for this seminar. And if you would like to learn more about the Small Business Advertising Club, just go to this web address and I'll be happy to share it with you.